Good evening. Welcome to my COVID-19 diaries. Today is May 30th. It's a Saturday, and I was going to talk about Philip Larkin because I find Philip Larkin a very interesting person, and I like his poetry. But once again, local events have overtaken my life. As you know, I live in Minneapolis. I was living in if you've seen earlier editions of this diary, I was living in, I was spending the winter in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, but now I'm back in Minneapolis. So, and as you also know that Minneapolis and most of the country now, most of the major cities of the United States are in turmoil because on Monday, about 3.5 miles directly east of here, a black man named George Floyd was murdered by a Minneapolis police officer. There was some incident at a grocery store or a convenience store. The police were involved, and when they were arresting Floyd, one of the police officers actually pinned him down when he was handcuffed, put his knee on his neck, and pressed down until George was dead. Well, this has escalated into a major firestorm. And firestorm is right. The city of Minneapolis is burning. South Minneapolis has been devastated all along Lake Street, which is a very beautiful old historic street. Local businesses have been attacked and burned. Stores have been looted. The Precinct 3 police station, where these 4 police officers were deployed, has been burnt to the ground. And now the National Guard has been called in. Yesterday was the first day that the National Guard were deployed in Minneapolis, but they were pretty ineffective or were not fully deployed because Friday night was the worst night of rioting. And as I record this, it is Saturday evening, about 7:30. Minneapolis goes into curfew at 8 p.m. Major highways and roads are closed, and people have been asked to stay in so that they can identify the people who are actually making the trouble. And claims have been made that they are people who have come from out of the city, in fact, in some cases out of the state. The right-wing folks would like us to believe that they're left-wing radicals, whereas the left-wing folks would like us to think they're white they're white supremacists. What the truth is, the truth might be somewhere in the middle. I'm sure there's some anarchists and there's some right-wing militia types involved. Whatever the case is, I hope tonight the National Guard will be able to secure Minneapolis and protect our property from being torched. So, when when you're in time of like such turmoil, I can think of no better poem than W.B. Yeats' poem that he wrote, which has in fact become a sort of a classic staple. If you see, there's lots of quotations that are extracted from different people's works. If for instance, if you watch any of Shakespeare's plays, you say, oh, that's where that comes from. But in this case, the second coming is just line after line of stuff that has been mined and used by other people. So I'm going to read this poem. I think it's very appropriate to what's happening outside. Again, I'm not the world's best reader. In fact, I claim to be the world's second worst reader, but I like poetry, and so you'll have to put up with it. Okay, Second Coming by W.B. Yeats. Turning and turning in the whitening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dim tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming? Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know. that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hours come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born? I hope you're surviving the pandemic, and if you're in Minneapolis or in Minnesota or any of the major cities in the US, you're safe from the riots that are going on. I hope that George will get the justice that he deserves. In fact, the police officer who actually murdered him is under arrest now, charged with the murder in the third degree and manslaughter. And I hope the other three officers who were involved in that arrest are also prosecuted. Take care of yourselves, and I hope we will all come out of this at the other end intact.